Monday and welcome back to, or welcome to if you're new, Makeup and Mental Health Mondays. My name is Johnna and I am a coach. I work with individuals who are looking to improve their relationship with themselves and others, primarily focused in like that of body image and like self-doubt. I help them to say F societal standards and really step into the power of who the F they are. And I sit down every Monday and do my makeup and talk about a different aspect of mental health and what that looks like. So, if you were new, again, welcome. If you are coming back, thank you for your support. Please do subscribe, like, comment below. That's where the conversation continues. This comment's been a little bit dry, so if you got something to say, speak your truth. Take up that space, which is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. And it's going to be a fast one. I've got my notes. In theory, it's going to be a fast one, but I gotta go. So here we go. We're jumping right into it. Products I'm going to be using, I will post them below in the description. And otherwise, we're just going to jump into it. So when it comes to taking up space, what does that even mean? We're just using fingers and toes today. I gotta go. My Virgo friend is waiting on me, and woo, you know how they be. So taking up space, what types of space are there to start with? Let's look at that. So there is physical space, there is verbal space, and there is emotional space. And in a physical stance, when we are, considering how we show up in the world, we usually make ourselves pretty small, right? So if someone sits next to you on the bus, you shrink yourself and you literally try to make yourself smaller. Same thing if someone is brushing up next to you on the street. And I mean, that's cool, common courtesy. However, when you consider the space that you're occupying in a meeting, when there's actually space around you, are you taking up space or are you physically trying to make yourself smaller? Not to dog on you guys, but women, speaking to you, looking at you, traditionally we're the ones that are more likely to cross our legs and, try to make ourselves literally as small as we can. Meanwhile, if you think about men, they sprawl out, take up the space and why is your knee touching me? Slide the F over. They're the ones that take up that physical space. So I want you to be mindful of that as you move through, today and tomorrow and, the week or what the F ever. And just consider, when are times that you literally, if you're from Miami, you'll know I'm saying it like that. Literally. It's how, my people. It's how, I miss you all, Miami. It's how Miami talks. You are literally making yourself smaller. So I just want you to be mindful of when those times are, what you're doing, how it makes you feel, and why are you doing it. Verbally, let's talk about that for a hot minute. So a lot of times we speak softly, and yeah, you're in a library, that's great, keep it quiet. But when we are in a meeting, or when we are women, again, looking at you, and you know what, guys too, I'm talking to everybody, but traditionally, a lot of times when women are speaking in, a professional setting, we tend to not speak up, not be assertive. I know when I first started coaching the functional fitness, that was part of my feedback, was that I speak really softly, people can't understand me. So I was very much all right, we're going to start class, instead of, all right, bring it in, come on, time to go, it's time till, or time to, or what the F ever, there's a difference. You just set up, right? I commanded that authority, and so that's a part of taking up space. A lot of times we don't want to take up that verbal space, and I think a lot of times it comes from the fact that we're just not comfortable with the sound of our own voice. We don't know what it sounds like. People are oh, I hate hearing myself on my voicemail or your screen recording or your video or what the F ever. Because we don't normally listen to ourselves in that capacity. We don't know what our own voice sounds like. And so therefore it makes us uncomfortable. We feel there's something wrong with it. So vocal space is definitely something that, again, like, be present to that ish. Next up, emotional. So let's talk about the emotional component of it. Shit is like thrown around everywhere here. So let's talk about the emotional component of taking up space. And this is something that I speak to my clients about. This is something that I, am present to in my own life. But when it comes to emotional space, a lot of times we don't want to, speak what's on our mind because, oh, it's not a good time, or, oh, I don't want to make them uncomfortable, or, oh, like, whatever the case may be. It's like we don't say what is on our mind because we don't want to inconvenience someone else. I mean, that's cool if, the setting calls for it. Like, don't make anyone uncomfortable or put them in an awkward position. But at the same time, if there's some stuff that's really bothering you and your partner, let's say, had a bad day, then, what benefit does it do you in staying quiet and letting that fester and sitting on your feelings? Huh? Riddle me that. Because I was in a relationship where I had to sit on my feelings. Like, I didn't want to, it was a very empathic, like, person I was dating, both Pisces. And so if something would come up, I wouldn't want to say anything because I'm like, oh, well, he had a bad day, or, oh, well, like, he's got a lot going on. And that doesn't serve me or him, because then I would get, like mad about bullshit. Like, dumb things would just, like, set me off. And so it would, like, manifest in different ways. So it didn't serve me, it didn't serve him, it didn't serve our relationship. So sitting on your feelings is, like, not a good situation. Also with that, there's the instance that, like, we don't want to burden people. We don't want to, and I mean, that's kind of, like, relative. Like, you don't want people to feel that, your perceived, like, heaviness, which, valid, feels heavy to you, and could potentially also feel heavy to them, could, like, weigh them down. And that's, like, a fine line, because, like I said, sitting on your feelings is one thing, like the situation I described with the person I was in a relationship with. It's another thing when we don't say them, when we don't speak those feelings, because it's something that we just, like, are fearful of how it will be interpreted by the other person, in the sense of, well, I'm a burden to them. No, you're not. If you're a burden to them, they wouldn't be your friend. Or, I mean, maybe they would be because they don't have any concept of personal boundaries. But, your friends are there for you. Like, we're here to, like, help one another. And so, don't feel like you're burdening them. At the same time, if it is something where, they don't have the emotional capacity to discuss it at the time, or the bandwidth, or the maturity emotionally, or, just the space, then be present to that and, seek professional assistance if that's what serves you, and talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, talk to someone who is going to be able to support you and give you what you need so that you can, be there for them. If we're all just walking around, like, bottling our feelings up, then we're, like, ticking time bombs, in the sense that it's going to come out in some way or another. Whether that manifests in, like, a physical ailment, or you, like, screaming at your kids, or a stranger, or, having extreme road rage, like, whatever. It can manifest in so many different ways. It's, again, like, not serving you. You're not going to be your best for them. Like, no one wins. No one wins. So make sure that you are, speaking what you need. And with that being said, when it comes to taking up space, how do we do it? So physically, I mean, I think just spread up and take it. There are some postures that I will talk about a little bit later in regards to what it looks like when it comes to taking up space and how we can do that in like a capacity that really like lifts you up and gives you a sense of like empowerment. So I'll talk about those in a bit. And one thing that I like to say and tell my clients, my friends, and like people is, you know, embrace your inner Beyonce. Like, embody like that energy and that persona and that presence, and like, you know, recognize like your greatness, whether you feel it or not. We'll talk about it, but you know, really owning like what that is and like who that person is and who you can be. And if it serves you, give that person a name. You know, Lady Gaga, like, that's not her real name, so do that. Like, consider what that person would be named that you want to be, and channel that. You know, like, there are no rules in terms of, there are no rules in terms of self-discovery, and, you know, your internal narrative, and like what you can say to yourself, like whatever works, you know, like whatever works, like create that like different archetype, like that person of who you want to be, and roll with it, and, you know, embody it. So that is a physical thing. We'll talk about the postures in a minute. Vocally, finding your voice. Like, you need to know what that feels like. You need to be present to the things that you're taking in. Like, for example, music is a very powerful tool. If you listen to like the words and like the subconscious like conditioning that is putting forth into our psyche. So if you listen to like music, a lot of time they refer to women as girls, and that's been something that I've been very present to. A lot of times men refer to women as girls. Like, girls are a child. A female child is a girl. Once you hit adolescence and you go through puberty, you are a woman. So, you know, refer to yourself as such. Like, we don't call men boys. Like, you call a man a boy in like a negative term, you know? So why are we calling women girls? Why are we doing that? Like, it's 2020. It's 2020. I'm talking in my head. Like, it's time to refer to women for what they are. Women. You also need to be conscious of your inner and outward dialogue. So what are the things that you are saying to yourself? Like that internal narrative that we spoke about, that I bring up quite often. You know, what are the things that we're telling ourselves? How are we talking to ourselves? How are we referring to ourselves? And, you know, what are we saying to others? How are we speaking to others about ourselves? All of this matters. It matters so much. So be mindful of that. In terms of, still on the vocal, really being assertive and owning like who you are, stating things as facts and comments and not posing them as questions. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times whenever we add that like high pitch at the end, like, oh really? Like questionative, like, yeah. And sometimes I, you know, go to the store and when I'm looked at a certain way, it makes me feel a bit insecure. And so it's like you're doubting yourself. No, when I go to the store and looked at a certain way, it makes me feel insecure. You can see the difference. And as women and as men, you know, we're taught to like be not shameful, but we're taught to, you know, be delicate in the way that we describe our feelings, because, you know, what if it makes someone else feel some type of way? And again, 2020 up in this bitch. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. You speak your truth, and you are responsible for that. You are not responsible for how other people interpret it. I must say that again. You are responsible for speaking your truth, not how other people interpret it. If that person has a concern or a problem with it or misinterpretation, then that is their responsibility to then, you know, let you know, hey, when you said this thing, I'm not quite sure what you meant, and so could you elaborate? it made me feel this way. I wanted to get clear. There's so many different ways to phrase it. I really didn't set up for this. There's so many different ways to phrase it that, you know, we need to normalize, like, having these conversations. So, that's that. Oh, it's right effing here. The brush I was looking for. Be confident when you are saying these things because, oh, let me do my brows first. Be confident when you're saying these things because, again, you know, like, this is your sentiment, this is your feeling, this is valid. So make sure that you have confidence in that, knowing that all those things are true, that you are worthy, that you have a right to speak your truth and, like, say your piece. Some of those things that we spoke about, like, the other week about, you know, consider, like, what you have the right to. You have the right to be safe. You have the right to speak your truth. You have the right to say what's on your mind. And remembering those. In terms of if you're going to, you know, give a presentation at work, or even if you're going to have a conversation that could be uncomfortable, rehearse, role play, ask a friend, call me, you know, like, make sure that you feel prepared, even if that is you standing in front of the mirror, like, saying whatever it may be. And that makes such a difference because, like I said, we're not familiar with the sound of our own voices. So when you rehearse and you speak aloud, guess what? You're hearing your own voice. And you're hearing it in a different way because it's you, you know, doing that rehearsal with the intention of being mindful of what's happening and of how you're going to be coming across to someone else. So be considerate of that and rehearse. If you know, so choose. There are improv classes that you can take. The Engaging Educator is an amazing one. There are public speaking classes that you can take. Woo, Lord. There are public speaking classes like Toastmasters. That is an international one, and they I have to focus here. Alright, Toastmasters is an international one, and they have chapters all over that you can look into. Please hold. Alright, we're gonna see what that looks like later. But I have to go, honey. So Toastmasters, international locations, located all over. You can look into joining a chapter. You can look into dropping in. Some people allow drop-ins. I don't actually know what that looks like now that we are in the middle of a pandemic, or in the beginning, the midst, the end. I don't know. Wherever we are in this pandemic, I don't know what that looks like now. However, there are definitely public speaking courses that you can take that will help you in terms of familiarizing yourself with the sound of your own voice and having confidence in speaking. And you can practice that wherever. You know, embody your newfound persona and let them speak, you know, like objectively and like psychologically. That makes a difference because it's like, well, it's not me, it's them. Like, if they make a fool, you know, like you were trying out this new thing. So, like, F it. You know, just don't do it again if you didn't like it. I think this is fine. There we go. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So, how do we create, or how do we take up space emotionally? It's going to be so fun for me to edit. How do we take up space emotionally? So in terms of that, tell others what you need. You know, that is something that I speak about a lot. I don't even know which mirror to look at. Are these crooked? kind of. Alright, we're going to do some work on this. Please hold. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see what we can do. Make that one a little more pointy. And this one a little bit thicker. So, I know we're talking about emotional space. Ooh, we almost got it. Okay, well now I've made two. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh. Yes. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now I think I can line it up with some this. Alright. We're counting it. We are counting it. Okay. So, emotional space. How do we take that up? Ask for what you need. And this is something that I talk to everyone about. Like, I preach to them about how, important it is to state what you need. If I come to you with an experience, then, what am I doing? If I come to you with an experience that I would like to share, saying, hey, I just want to vent. Do you have time to listen? Or do you have space to listen? Whatever the case may be. Or I could really appreciate your insight on this. Whatever that might look like, whatever you need, ask. That is taking up emotional space. And return that favor. Because that is you showing up powerfully for them. When a friend is coming to you with something that is on their mind and on their heart, on their conscious, whatever, then ask them what support they need. Is it just that they need to vocally talk it out, that they need to take up that space, or is it that they want a suggestion? So make sure that you let them know that you want to know how you can best support them by asking. In terms of emotional space and mental health, like what we talked about last week, protecting those boundaries. So standing your ground in the sense that, know what your non-negotiables are. I recognize that there is a difference between compromising, which we spoke about, like, let's come to an agreement, but make sure that it's something that you are both comfortable with. Like, you don't want to be put in an awkward position. You don't want to put anyone else in an awkward position, because that doesn't feel good. We're not enabling one another to be our most authentic selves at that point. So, making sure that you know what your non-negotiables are. And sometimes that means saying no. That means saying no to stuff. And that's okay. Being okay with that, because at the end of the day, you are doing what is best for you. Okay, so we've run through this. I hope that, you are staying in touch or in tune, or you're keeping up with this whirlwind. What we're going to talk about now, being mindful of so action items, like the homework, the soul work, if you so choose to accept it, optional, you don't have to do it. You could just listen and watch and be like, why is she flying through her makeup and doing her eyebrows like that? Soul work is being mindful. We spoke about that, earlier on, just being present as to when and where you are shrinking yourself, whether that be on a physical level, on a verbal level, or on an emotional one. And what I was talking about, those positions, taking up that space, those power positions, if you will. So I want to bring up, there's a woman called Amy Cuddy. So I'm not quite sure when the camera cut off. We were talking about next steps. I'm not going to do my lips yet because I'm about to go somewhere, and I would like to eat and drink beforehand. But yeah, we're going to do a dark lip probably, so you'll probably see that on the cover. Anywho, what I have to say about your homework, and I'm probably going to pop in the parts that were missed, so this video might be a little bit all over the place. My bad. The content's good though. So, in terms of taking up space, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm being unapologetic in the sense that I am owning what is, and I'm letting you know what's up very transparently. So that would be an example of taking up space. So glad that this all happened so I can model that behavior for you. In terms of the homework, soul work, action items, whatever you want to call it, if you choose to, go into that part. I mentioned being mindful. I mentioned that at the get. So being mindful of when you are... God, can you hear that? Okay, it's gone. Being mindful of when you shrink yourself physically, vocally, and also on a emotional level. And from there, the other thing that I mentioned was taking up that physical space. And there is a TED Talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy, and she talks about how, people are all like, fake it till you make it, which is, potentially toxic and kind of bullshit in some senses, but it really serves you in another. Toxic in the sense that, well, we can talk about that later, like, you're acting as a pseudo self and you're not being who you want to be, but powerful in the sense that, you are working towards that goal of being and embodying who you want to be. Like what I was saying about embody your Beyonce, or embody, this persona that you want to be. I think it's healthy in that sense because it's helping you future plan and see yourself where you want to be. And so, anything in balance, everything in balance. Don't let it consume you so that you're, pretending that you're something that you're not. That's, what it can potentially be when it's toxic, because it comes across as inauthenticity. And yeah, so that would be when it is negative. But we're getting way off track. So be mindful of when and where you are and are not taking up space. And then from there, check out Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power positions. I will link that below. really great, and she talks about 3 different power positions. And what I was saying about the fake it until you make it concept is that she says while, you know, mentally it can be, like, research has shown that, like, while mentally, you know, talking yourself into things and, like, visualizing, like, that kind of requires some work, when you physically embody the movement, when you physically do the thing, you're tricking your mind in a way because, like, you're actually doing the thing, right? So if I say, like, I'm going to take up space, I'm going to, like, be present and bold in that meeting, that's one thing. However, when I actually stand my ground and, like, arms overhead, like, chest up, like, back nice and straight, like, and physically take up that space, my body then is able to say, oh, this is what that feels like. And so it's different. Like, you actually start to, the research or studies have shown, and she mentions it in the video, you actually start to, you know, have those feelings, and that can happen mentally too. However, you know, you are able to have a better understanding of what it feels like to actually occupy that space, to, like, be in that, like, presence when you physically, like, do the movements, because you're kind of getting, like, a bit ahead of yourself in the sense that you're like, okay, well, like, mentally, like, I might not be there, but, you know, physically, like, I can do the damn thing. And so that is why power positions are so powerful. And there's studies that say, like, before an interview, go stand, like, with your arms on your chest. If you there have been studies that have shown in terms of, you know, people winning a race or experiencing some sort of success, like, the first thing they do is arms overhead and, like, the victory stance. And that is also true for people who have never seen that, like people who are blind, which is really cool in the sense that, like, we're doing that movement as well, and, like, they do it too, but, like, how do they know? Anyway, because they've never seen it. Like, we mimic what we see and what we know, and, like, how would they know to do that? So interesting. So make sure that you watch those. There are 3 positions, and those are the ones that I suggest doing. There's one called the CEO, where you, like, have your hands on your head, like, you're taking up space, like, feet on the desk if you're so inclined, or the couch or whatever, and, like, really leaning into feeling what that feels like to occupy that space in time. So the next one is the Beyonce, as, like, I like to call it, like, hands on your hips, like, you've all seen her do it. And then the Victor, which is the one, like, arms outstretched overhead. So that was super, super quick. I hope that this was super, super helpful. And let me know any comments, questions, concerns below if you're so inclined. If you want to slide into my DMs, honey, do it. And that's all I have to say today. I've got to go meet my Virgo friend. Holy shit, I need to leave now. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and may you have a day that you most certainly deserve. I'll see you next week. I'm not quite sure what we're going to be talking about. I have it scheduled or planned, but I did not look. So anyway, excited for that, whatever it may be. It's going to be a mystery and surprise for all of us. I hope that you will tune in, and I will see you then. Bye! Fuck, okay, I gotta go. I've got to go.